Grr. Hey dolls, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with another makeup and movies. This episode, the makeup is Juvia's Place. You know I love me some Juvia's Place. The Zulu palette. Now this was a gift from Leon Playmaker, who is one of my Patreon supporters. He surprised me by just sending this to me. He actually sent me two others, the Warrior, which is a gorgeous palette, and the Wahala 2 palette, which is back in stock if you've been waiting. But we're not using those. We are using the Zulu palette. Now this is a great palette because it's got lots of colors. If you want one colorful palette, like you just want one, you don't need to go crazy. Maybe once in a while you're going to throw some color on. This is an excellent one. I'm going to be leaning towards the reds and oranges, and then the green and yellow for my lid. I'm also going to be using the Fumi Desalu Vold and Juvia's Place collab, the Queen palette, because, as you know, this is my blush, and I will also be using the NYX Contour palette. Now, onto the good stuff. This week's movie is the 1968 Columbia Pictures release, Funny Girl. This was the highest grossing movie of that year. It starred Barbra Streisand in her first role. Also, it starred Omar Sharif and was directed by William Wilder, who, at that time, he'd already won 4 Oscars. He was a huge, Ben-Hur, Mrs. Minerva. He was a huge cornerstone in Hollywood. And I think did an excellent job. I think he brought his sense of grandeur into Funny Girl. Now, the reason that Funny Girl is on my list is because Funny Girl is the first film that the world really saw Barbra Streisand in, but you have to remember that Barbra Streisand had been a recording artist for a bit of time before that. Had done, at this point, I think she'd already done her TV special, I Am Barbara, or Color Me Barbara. I don't remember what. I'm not as gay as I like to think I am. I don't know everything about Barbra Streisand, but she had already done TV specials. She was a recording artist. People were buying her albums, and she'd been in the Broadway play for Funny Girl for 2 years before this. So she really was the best choice to play the role. She had only done one play before she did Funny Girl, and it was I Can Get It For You Wholesale, and she stopped the show with her song in the play, which was where she just, why don't I get the guy, it's always these other girls, and just she stopped the show. And I guess at the time Isabel Leonard was writing the play about Fanny Brice's life. Now, Funny Girl is about a real person, Fanny Brice. She was a stand-up because she could sing. She was a great singer, but she was also very, very funny. She had one character, Baby Snooks, which was something she did on the radio, which was just a young little girl, kind of like Lily Tomlin's Edith Ann, but because it was on the radio, Fanny Brice played it until well into her older age. There's not a lot of movies with Fanny Brice in them because movies were just starting at the height of her fame. And she did do some stuff. You can certainly look it up and see it. But she was a theater performer and really quite spectacular. And so Barbra Streisand, I guess, embraced that kind of humor, that sensibility. And they really saw her showing that in I Can Get It For You Wholesale. And it caught the attention of Isabel Leonard. As I say, she wrote the musical. She also wrote the screenplay for the movie. And she was one of the people who said, if Barbra Streisand doesn't play this, you can't do my play. So clearly, there were a lot of people that felt that Barbra Streisand was integral to this success of this production, and they weren't wrong. Here's something. The only person that's really ever played Fanny Brice is Barbra Streisand. Yes, there's been revivals. Yes, London had a very successful remount of it recently in the last 10 years anyway, but it's been so iconically tied to Barbra Streisand that I think a lot of people are just afraid of bothering to get it out there on any other level. The thing that's the most impressive about Barbra Streisand, not just in this movie, but in general, she's such a huge icon in the gay community. And a lot of people are like, well, why? I think one of the first reasons was that Barbra Streisand really captured the glamour of the 60s and did it so well because she was so original. Like, she was so unique. Her, Cher, there were a bunch of people in each of their their lives where they stood out because they weren't the norm. Barbra Streisand was not your typical beauty face. You know, she wasn't blonde. She had that nose on her that she refused to have fixed, and good for her. My favorite thing about Barbra Streisand's face is her nose. For somebody who wasn't classically considered beautiful, I think Barbra Streisand is one of the most beautiful faces in film. Her profile is ridiculous. She looks like a cross between a Roman coin and Nefertiti. I just don't think that there's many faces that can compare, especially in those early years, because she was just so unique. The other thing was, at that time, she was very much into equality, like rights, things like that. She took a real stand for a lot of issues that weren't considered popular. And I think that gave her a real toehold in the gay community. Plus, that voice, oh my God, how could you not love that voice? Now, as I've said before, there's a lot of things that make a good film a classic, especially for, I think, potential drag performers. And the director for this was William Wilder. Huge name in films. The fact that he did a musical like this, he wasn't the first choice. But I think once he was done, you could see there was no other choice. He was, I think, the best pick for this film. Also, the dialogue. I mean, there's such good dialogue in this movie, like "Hello, Gorgeous," her opening line. All of the dialogue is down to Isabel Leonard. She wrote the stage play based on Fanny Brice's life. She wrote the screenplay for the movie. So a lot of all of the things that made the play so successful transferred to the film. Now, keep in mind, this play was nominated for every Tony. I don't think it won any of them. But it was a huge success on Broadway. It ran for 2 years. And when they transferred it to film, there were a lot of things about it going to film that made it a unique experience for everyone involved. For one thing, they cast Omar Sharif as Nicky Arnstein. And at that time, I think they were filming in 1967, there was the 6-day war between Egypt and Israel. It was in the news. It was huge. And to have Barbra Streisand, a Jewish American, and Omar Sharif, an Egyptian, it caused quite a stir. Like, it was a huge deal. It was in the papers. In fact, they considered not using Omar Sharif. In one of the people that they actually considered using, and I'm so glad they didn't, was Frank Sinatra. Ugh. And he would have been way too old to play opposite Barbra Streisand. But one of the reasons they didn't go with Frank Sinatra, because he was so up his own rear end, he demanded that if he did the role, that they write in some more songs for Nicky Arnstein to sing. And they were like, well, it's not his movie. So there were other people. I think all of the names, Clark Gable, all of them were all considered for Arnstein. But Barbra Streisand and William Wilder threatened to quit if they didn't keep him in the cast. And this was going on while the Egyptian government, it's a movie. It's an American movie. The Egyptian government, one of the papers in Egypt showed a picture, a production still of Omar Sharif and Barbra Streisand. I don't know if they were kissing or it was a romantic scene, but they were being a little more intimate than just standing next to each other and smiling for the camera. And because of that, there was talk that the Egyptian government was going to revoke his citizenship. But it was a huge deal. There was a lot going on. It was a lot of turmoil in the world. Now, one of the things that I love about this movie is the wardrobe. Now, again, the reason that I love this wardrobe is, I'm using P. Louise to cut my crease, is Irene Sheriff. I'm sure that's how I've never heard anyone say her name, but I'm sure it's Sheriff. She was an award-winning wardrobe designer for film and stage. She had won the 1966 Oscar for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. She'd done the 1963 Oscar for her wardrobe in Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor. She won the 1961 Oscar for West Side Story, The King and I she did in 1956. She got the 1952 Tony for The King and I. And in fact, her design work for The King and I, bringing in all that tie silk and everything, was so impactful in North America that it affected designers, interior designers. Everyone needed to have tie silk either on their walls or in their wardrobes. Irene was also nominated for Judy Garland's 1954 A Star is Born. She did Guys and Dolls in 55, and she did Barbra Streisand's wardrobe for Hello Dolly in 69. So she was a good solid pick to do this movie. Keep in mind, this was done in 67, I guess they filmed it, because it was released in 68. And there's a lot of license taken with this wardrobe. I mean, we're talking about the Ziegfeld Follies. This would have been the 1920s, maybe just a bit before. Yet there's such a great tie-in to the fashion of the 60s. I think that Irene did a beautiful job. There's a scene where Barbra Streisand is talking to Nick Arnstein backstage of her first performance in a local, I guess, vaudeville house. And these two women are at the door going, "Come on, Nikki, let's go." And she looks at them and she's like, "Wow, are those yours?" And they cut to these women. They're most stunning women, but they look so 1960s. They could be Twiggy, do you know, except for the hair. I think that Irene really captured the period of the Ziegfeld Follies and yet made it fashionable for the audience that was watching this movie. I think she just did that beautifully. And I think that's one of the reasons why so much of her work was awarded and stood out. She just was able to capture a mood and yet keep it relevant and fresh. Irene also designed Barbara's costumes. I think she only wore one dress, maybe she wore a couple, for her happening in Central Park. It was a huge deal. And Irene also designed the wardrobe for Mommy Dearest. And again, because she's able to capture a period, she was still able to make it palatable to a modern audience. And I think she did that beautifully in Mommy Dearest. Of course, one of my favorite movies, Meet Me in St. Louis, she also did the wardrobe too. What's interesting about Funny Girl as a movie is Barbra Streisand wasn't the first choice to play it, even though she did it on Broadway for 2 years. Initially, they were looking at Shirley MacLaine. What's interesting about that is Shirley MacLaine and Barbra Streisand both have the same birthday. It's April 24th. And I'm not sure. I do believe that they were friendly. I don't know. I'm not friends of theirs, so they wouldn't have told me. But I think that Isabel Leonard, who wrote the play and also then the screenplay, said they couldn't have her movie if Barbra Streisand didn't play this part. And I guess, she had done it so perfectly and brilliantly on Broadway that they couldn't say no. So I just think it would have been a completely different movie if Shirley MacLaine had played it. I can't even imagine Shirley MacLaine playing it. And, one of the things I love about this movie is really, for the longest time, the only person who played this part was Barbra Streisand. She played it on stage for 2 years, and then the movie, and keep in mind, everyone saw this movie. This movie in 1968 made almost $25 million. It's ridiculous. Just to give you an example of that, Barbra Streisand tied for the Oscar. She and Katharine Hepburn won the Oscar that year, and Katharine Hepburn was nominated and won for the role in Lion in Winter. That movie only made $10 million, and it was Katharine Hepburn. So it just goes to show you how popular Funny Girl was. The thing about Funny Girl, again, another reason why films are great for drag queens is the dialogue. Isabel Leonard wrote a great play. She also translated it to the screen beautifully. And the lines in the movie are just, the opening line, "Hello, gorgeous." It's the first thing said in this movie. It's Barbra Streisand in a leopard coat, and you just see her eye, and then she pulls it down, looks at herself in the mirror and smiles coyly and says, "Hello, gorgeous." And it set the tone. It's been used all over the world. Everyone quotes it. It's You know, for a drag queen to walk into a room and not have somebody say hello gorgeous to them is probably insulting. But the thing that stands out for this, because it is such a successful musical, is how brilliant the music in it was. This is, I think, one of the best translations of a Broadway musical to the screen, because the music just happens. It's not like people stop and sing a song. The music happens. And one of the very first musical numbers is I'm the Greatest Star, which if you're a drag queen and you don't know this song or you haven't done this song, then I think you need to reevaluate your career path, because this is every performer has sung this for an audition, I'm sure. It's just one of those songs that makes every performer's heart beat faster and maybe even brings a tear to their eye, because they're all the greatest star in their own mind. And the tenacity of the Fanny Brice character to be this performer. The film opens with her mother, who runs a saloon, and her mother's friends. Her mother, played by Kay Medford, was also in the Broadway play. She played Fanny Brice's mother, Rose. So she came with the production to Hollywood. Both she and Barbara were nominated for not just the Tony, but the Oscar. One of the other women in the room is Mae Kestel. She played Mrs. Straykosh. She's hilariously funny in it. But her claim to fame, which I was floored by, is that she was the original voice of Olive Oyl in the Popeye cartoons and the original voice of Betty Boop. So, again, some really interesting people involved in this production, like real veterans of the craft. So it opens with the three women and Fanny. Fanny's getting ready to leave for an audition. And they're all talking about how, you know, you can't be famous if you're not pretty. And so clearly they don't think Fanny's pretty. But Mrs. Straykosh is like, when a girl's incidentals are no bigger than 2 lentils, then to me it doesn't spell success. And that's being sung to her as Barbra Streisand frigs off to this local theater in her neighborhood to audition for the chorus. And she's just awful. Even the guy that's auditioning her feels bad, because as she's auditioning, Mr. Keeney, the owner of the theater, comes in and he's looking at all these girls rehearsing this veil number, and they're all like, ay, 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 and they're all walking around with these scarves, ay, 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 and Barbra Streisand couldn't be less graceful, less fluid, and Mr. Keeney sees her, and he's like, what the heck, and he goes, you, and Barbra Streisand's looking around, with the skinny legs, and then she starts looking at other people's legs, yes, you, you're fired. He's like, oh, and the guy that brought her in for this audition, or for this role, feels so bad that he says, look, I'm premiering a new act tonight. Can you roller skate? And she's like, can I roller skate? Next thing is her on stage not roller skating very well with the rest of the girls. And it's just a travesty. She just ruins the number. All the girls are just being either thrown off balance by her or thrown off what they're doing because she keeps running into them. At one point, the girls are literally just doing this, and no matter what, Barbra Streisand's doing it the other way and throws them all off. And at the end of the number, as the girls all roll off stage, Fanny Brice, played by Barbra Streisand, falls. She's lying there on the stage like roadkill. As she's getting up, the crowd is going crazy because they just thought what she did was so funny. And they're just loving her. And this next act, and it's clearly a woman who's going to sing. You can even hear the song that she's going to sing, which is I'd Rather Be Blue, being played by the orchestra as she steps out, and they try and stop her, and she's like, no. And so this guy that put Fanny Brice in this failed roller skate number steps on the back of her dress, and it rips away, and so now she can't go on stage. And Fanny's like, going to go out on stage. She's like, no, Fanny, go back out. You sing, smile. So she starts singing I'd Rather Be Blue. And it's one of the best numbers. I think the thing that's lovely about it is, as Barbara's singing it in the beginning stages, she's clearly nervous and worried and thinking, oh, this is a big mistake and nobody's going to like me. And there's a moment where she looks over at this guy up on the wings, and he's like, smile. And she's, I'm crazy about ya, without ya. For you, and she just melts into the song. And the crowd goes wild. And all of a sudden, she can roller skate. All of a sudden, she can, nothing spectacular, but she's able to roll from A to B and not kill anybody. And it's just this magical number where you see this potential in this performer. And she goes backstage, and all the girls are in the dressing room, and they're all mad because they feel like on some level she sabotaged the number for her own gain. And she's like, well, I'm sorry, but while I'm sorry, I'm also glad I was a big hit. And they're all talking and going, well, who do you think's going to see in this dump? Ziegfeld? And she's saying, oh, you don't know. Like, I know, my mother knows the woman who launders his shirts. And they're all kind of going, oh, sure, whatever. And while she's, oh, sure, one day you'll all be sitting here laughing and joking like you do. And there'll be a knock on the door. There's a knock on the door. And I'll open the door, and it'll be Ziegfeld. She opens the door, and it's Nicky Arnstein, although we don't know that that's who it is, but he's just stunningly gorgeous. And she opens the door, looks at him, slams the door shut, and looks at the girls, and then opens it again, like, can I help you? And he's like, yeah, I wanted to see you. And he drags her out, and as he drags her out, she looks back at the other girls like, oh. And that's where she meets Nicky Arnstein. It's the whole thing. Nicky Arnstein, Nicky Arnstein. What a beautiful, beautiful name. He's got polish on his nails. I'll never see him again. And that's the start of this love affair. So we cut to Barbra Streisand's character, Fanny Brice. She's walking home, and there's been a telegram. And usually telegrams mean somebody's dead because who can afford to send a telegram? And so she walks in and says to her mother, who is it, Mama? Auntie Blanche or Lou? And she goes, Ziegfeld. He died? And it's just no. And it's this letter. And while Barbara reads it, her mother, Rose, she's read it so many times that she's now mouthing it word for word perfectly. And it's an audition. Ziegfeld's invited her to audition for his Follies. And at this time, there was vaudeville, and then there was Ziegfeld, the Follies. It was, his whole thing was girls, 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 and gorgeous, and stairs up to the heavens, and they're all coming down and being gorgeous. And so there's Barbra Streisand as Fanny Brice auditioning for Ziegfeld, singing Secondhand Rose, and she's the smallest person on stage. Everyone else is just tall and stacked and gorgeous, and he hires her right on the spot. And she's like, I'm a Ziegfeld girl? Yes, Miss Brice, that's exactly what you are, a Ziegfeld girl. And then she stands next to these two, I'm sure they're standing up on a little bit of a stage too, but they're just the most tall women in the world. She's like, I'm a Ziegfeld girl. And then he says, great, now here's your number, go learn it. And she immediately has an issue. She tells him, I can't sing this song. Can we just do Secondhand Rose and leave it at that? And he's like, what do you mean you can't do this number? And she's like, well, I can't go on stage singing I'm the beautiful reflection of my love's affection. People will laugh. And he said, no, they won't. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. And so we cut to, I guess, opening night in the theater. Fanny Brice's mother, Mrs. Straykosh, the guy from Mr. Keeney's theater is also in the audience with them. And they cut to this, on stage, this number, the most beautiful bride in the world, and it's all these Ziegfeld girls, dozens and dozens of Ziegfeld girls coming down the stairs, each one more beautiful than the next, and they're stunning, all of them. And finally we see Fanny Brice kind of coming out from the back of all this. She reaches the front, she turns sideways, she's so pregnant, and of course the whole room goes, and there's Florence Ziegfeld, often very stoic. Walter Pidgeon played him, he's very stoic and proper, and he's like, and he's walking to the back stage. You can just see him cutting through the audience, not the audience, but the side, one of the aisles. And as he's walking, he turns because the audience is losing it. They're laughing. And she's singing, I am the beautiful reflection of my love's affection. And it's just the funniest thing. Everyone's losing their mind. She does the whole number, and it's just brilliant. At the end of it, Florence comes backstage and congratulates everyone for a job well done, and then hauls her off backstage, clearly angry. And she's trying to apologize while people backstage are congratulating Flo, that's what they call him, Flo, on another great opening. And she's trying to talk to him. He's like, be quiet. And while she's backstage, her mother, Mrs. Straykosh, and her friend from the theater all show up in her dressing room. Miss Brice is busy. Too busy to see her mama. And Mrs. Straykosh has this feather on her head. She keeps bowing in front of Florence and Flo. And it's clearly becoming an issue. And Rose Brice is like, we're having the neighborhood, half the neighborhood will be at her saloon. Half, all, you'll come. Free beer. And he's like, beer? And as they leave, he says to Fanny, well, she's like, I'm so sorry. I just couldn't sing it straight because they would laugh at me. And he goes, but they did laugh at you. She goes, because I wanted them to laugh at me. They laughed at my joke. She says, am I fired? He's like, no. And she's like, so I'll play it straight tomorrow? She says, no, you will sing it the exact way you sang it tonight. And that's an order. Then says, but I'm going to get you a second song for a different song for the second half. And she's like, oh, well, I have to pick it. It's important that it's a very intimate thing between me and the audience. And this starts their relationship. She clearly is not someone to just sit there and let somebody else call all of the shots. And while that's all going on, there's another knock on the door. And it's Nicky Arnstein again. And he's there congratulating Florence on an opening number. And there's Fanny like just gagging because here's this gorgeous man. And she thinks that he told Florence Ziegfeld about her. And he's like, no, I didn't. I'd like to say I did, but I didn't. And she's like, I don't believe you. And so he invites her out again. And she's like, I have to go to my mother's saloon. And she says, do you want to come with me? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, wow. So he goes to the saloon and meets everybody, and they escape from the party to have a chat outside in the alley. And that's where Barbra Streisand sings People. And I have to tell you, I've never been a fan of that song. I don't know why. There's nothing wrong with it. I just have never liked it as a song. Like, the fact that I don't like it is probably causing people to clutch pearls right now. I don't know why. I've just never liked the song. But it's the huge number. She sings it to Nick, and then he has to leave. She finds out from him that he's a professional gambler or something like that. And she's like, so you just gamble? And he goes, well, like you did tonight with that pillow. And she's like, oh. He puts it in a way that she understands. And so he says, I'll call you when I'm back. Then we cut to, I guess it could be months. I know they say in the play in the movie how long it is. It's about a year. He hasn't seen her. She hasn't seen him. And the Ziegfeld Follies are in, I guess, Chicago. And all of the girls are getting off of the train. She sees Nick Arnstein talking to somebody. I guess she, on some level, thinks he's there because he knew she was going to be there. And in fact, he's not. He's waiting. He's got a horse running in a race. And the horse was on the train that she was on. And that's why he's there. And Barbra Streisand has this moment where she you didn't call me. You didn't, you just forgot to call me. And he goes, well, I didn't want to. I thought it was better that you just focused on what your career was bringing you. And he's like, besides, I was waiting for my girl Elsie. And she's like, oh, okay. And this horse comes off, and she looks off the train, and she looks at him. She got skinny legs like I do. And then he says, I'd like to see you tonight. I will order dinner, and I'll wait till you show up. And she's like, well, there's no law against waiting. People do it all the time. And she walks away. Next scene's her with her assistant, Emma, and she's repeating what she said. For the first time, I never said too much. I didn't say too little. I just said it, and then I walked. The next scene is her at the hotel in this gorgeous purple lavender outfit, and it's this private dining room, and there's a chaise in it, and she's like, oh, there's a bed, and she sings, isn't this the height of nonchalance, furnishing a bed in restaurants? And while he's ordering dinner, she's singing this song, and she keeps standing by this classic statuary and then posing like them. It's a great example of how stunning Barbra Streisand is. She's just got such classic bone structure and such beautiful lines in her neck and arms. And at the end of the song, he orders dinner in French from the waiter, and he goes, I hope that's all right. And she goes, well, I just would have ordered roast beef and potatoes. He goes, well, that's what I ordered. And she's like, oh, well, if I don't understand what you're ordering for dinner, how will I know when you're making a pass at me? And he says, you'll know. And then they kiss, and it's lovely. And then we cut to them, I guess, a few days later. They're having lobster in some seaside restaurant shanty type thing. It's not elegant or anything. This is very casual. And he says that he's leaving. Again, he's got to go on this cruise to England, and he's only going to play cards on the boat. And she wants to go with him, but he says no. And then cut to the train station the next day, and she's just sitting there, bummed out, not very happy with life in general. And these roses show up for her from Nick Onstein, and she just loses her mind, runs to the phone, calls Florence Ziegfeld, and says she's leaving the show to go with Nick Onstein. And this starts the other huge number from this musical, which is Don't Rain on My Parade. And you see Barbra Streisand on train, on boat to get to this cruise ship, and she shows up, and he's thrilled to see her, but also a little surprised because, well, she shouldn't be there. And this is where the movie takes a turn for me. The movie is very comedic and lighthearted up until she and Nick get together, and even after they get together, the movie still is kind of lighthearted and fun, but then we start to get all the trouble. Her fame starts to eclipse their relationship, and also makes Nick Onstein a bit of a celebrity in an unwanted way. Here he's trying to just be this smooth professional card player, and now people know too much about him, and it just becomes this, you can see the strain and the tension, and he starts losing money, and they have a baby, and it just becomes a more poignant film. And I remember as a child watching this movie, and I only would watch it up to a certain moment. There's one more fun number, which is the Swan Lake number, which Fanny Brice did on stage, where she does Swan Lake, but she's clearly, she goes, what are you going to do, shoot my swans? These beautiful swan girls? What are you, nuts? Can't you see when you look on me, but a lovely little creature is a swan, yoo-hoo. And it's just one of my favorite other numbers from the movie. But after that, it becomes quite somber. And, we start to see the problems. Fanny's mother even says to her, Nick owes money all over town. You're not paying any attention to the troubles he's having. And she's, I think, in her way, always been supportive of Nick by not getting involved in whatever he's doing. So she tries to get a couple of things going for him, but I think it insults him more than helps him. For instance, they have to give up their huge country manor house and take a smaller place in the city, which she blows off by saying, it's so hard to go to the theater when we live out here, and he knows that she's just saying that to be supportive. I guess we're also dealing at a time when the finances were down to the man, and even though Fanny Brice would have had her own money, she might not have necessarily have contributed to the house in the same way. And if Nick couldn't pay for the house himself, then they had to get rid of it. And so she tries to get somebody to hire him as a front man for some casino or something. And it's really just she's putting up the money for him to do this project, but they're acting like they're telling Nick to his face that they're only asking him to do it because his name will be attached to it and it'll help. And they're like, oh yeah, no, you're great. We need you to be in on this and help us with this. And he sees through it and ends up inadvertently getting arrested. She steps in and asks them, the judge, not to convict him. And it's just terrible. You can just see that their relationship is falling apart. And it's one of the reasons why I don't like the second half of this movie. I mean, I'm not saying it's awful, because we end up still having the best number in the whole movie, which is My Man, I Love Him So, which is a number that Fanny Brice actually did. She actually sang it. She was famous for it. In the movie, it's just such a gorgeous number because she's just in this black V-neck cut dress with this short little haircut. She's got this beautiful, it's very short in the back and long bangs that swoop across her face. And when she's singing it, like the tears are rolling down her face. It's just such a powerful moment in the movie. And again, this is one of those things where you think, this movie I don't think Shirley MacLaine would have done it that way. She couldn't have sold it like that. Not to say Shirley MacLaine isn't talented, but she's not talented that way. It's not the same. In my opinion, it has to be, I think, one of the most, because it's just her on stage, it's just her on screen. There's not even a backdrop. It's all black. The only thing that you can see are her hands with those elegant nails that were completely inappropriate for that period. And then her face with that short haircut and then black everywhere else. I mean, she's singing this song. And it's just so impactful. And this is another thing, I think, for drag queens to pay attention to. That's commanding an audience. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can be as cute as you want. You can look good in your little outfits. You can do whatever you want. But if you're not able to just command an audience to pay attention to you, they're not going to do it just because you're on stage. And that's the thing about Barbra Streisand's performance in this musical, is she demands that you look at her. And when you combine that with her perfect delivery of these gorgeous lines, her flawless execution of these really big numbers. Keep in mind, I think she's also one of the few people who sings in this musical. There are other singers in the movie singing. Even Omar Sharif sings at some point, but she's really the only one doing most of the musical numbers. And it's haunting. It's haunting when you think that she was 24 when she did this role, that she'd already been doing it for 2 years on Broadway, and she won an Oscar for it. It's important, I think, to know these things, because I feel like a lot of performances and we've kind of become blasé about a lot of stuff, if you ask me. I think the last time somebody caught me off guard in a film has to be Whoopi Goldberg in A Color Purple. And I mean, the fact that she was completely snubbed by the Oscars is another issue entirely. I remember Jennifer Lawrence winning her first Oscar and going, who? And then she won her second. I'm like, why? With that said, I still haven't seen any of her other performances because I just don't care. I'm not interested in what Jennifer Lawrence is bringing to the table. And I'm not saying that to be mean or rude. So, blah-de-da-de-da. There you go. One of the things that I've become aware of in picking movies for this classic films that drag queens should see is, when I'm talking about classic, I do really mean like the 60s and earlier. And unfortunately, because of that, there's not a lot of cultural representation, not a lot of black people in leading roles at all, until I think the 60s. And then they started cropping up in supporting roles and stuff. But in this research, what surprised me, and it's very, very typical of this period, to get a more diverse audience to see the movie, I think it was Motown that released an album, Diana Ross and the Supremes singing Funny Girl. It was released in '68, and I think the whole point of it as an album was to get black audiences to see the movie. So by getting Diana Ross and the Supremes record the songs as an album unto itself, I'm sure it was just to get people interested in going to see the movie once they'd heard the music. So it's weird. But stuff like that was always done. They might not have wanted to put people of color in a movie, but they certainly weren't having a problem taking anyone's money, I'll tell you what. So Funny Girl isn't the only movie that did that, but I was surprised to hear that it was done. All right. I think for the most part, that's all I have to say about Funny Girl. It covered a lot. I mean, it was politically questioned. It was socially questioned. It opens people's consideration on beauty and what could sell a movie. And in its way was very, very instrumental in bringing the world closer together and making us realize that our differences aren't that different. And I think with that said, and me looking a little crazy, I'm just going to finish up all of this and come back with my last few thoughts. And there you go. There's the finished look. I want to thank Leon for sending me the Zulu palette from Juvia's place. This is my favorite. Well, it's not my favorite. One of my favorite. There's only 2 or 3, but this is one of the places. If they have a sale, if they have a new product, they actually just started their own line of eyelid primers. So if you live in the States or you live near a Ultra, is that a drugstore in the States? I'm not sure where, but there's a drugstore chain that carries Juvia's place in their store. God, I wish they would do that up here because shipping is killing me. But Leon sent me this and a couple of other palettes. Thank you again, Leon. You're so sweet. And this week's movie, Funny Girl. It is the classic drag movie. Barbra Streisand is a classic drag icon. I'm going to do one episode of Makeup and Movies that will just be about Barbra Streisand movies because there's a couple. There's quite a few. And I'm not talking about the Yentls and I'm not talking about The Way We Were. There's some very good comedy movies out there that I think some people just have not seen or they get lost in the shuffle. Because as I say, Barbra Streisand, gay icon, she revolutionized fashion. She revolutionized beauty. She revolutionized singing. Nobody sang like her. She was a singer before she was an actress, but she wanted to be an actress before she was a singer. It's just a great movie. I feel it has high points, low points, spectacular performances across the board. And if you are a drag queen and haven't seen it, shame on you. If you want to be a drag queen and haven't seen it yet, get to it. It's available on Netflix as far as I know. I know it's on Netflix in Canada and the UK, so I can't imagine America wouldn't have it on. So get to it if you haven't seen it. And before you go, please like this video if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And until next episode, miss me! Mwah! Seriously.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.